Namaste, everyone. We welcome you to session 32 of the Unique Learning Series, organized by Akshayam, the young professional group of the Hindu Temple Society of North America. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Please share this with your friends and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube pages. My name is Venkat Krishnan. I am a member of the Akshayam team. Akshayam is a group of young volunteers from the New York Ganesh Temple located in Flushing, Queens. Today's session will be led by Swami Sarvapriyananda ji. We know about Swamiji's great work and have heard his speeches in previous events. Just to provide a quick introduction, Swamiji joined the Ramakrishna Mutt and mission in 1994 and received sannyasa in 2004. He has served the mission in various capacities. He is also a inaugural fellow member for 2019-20 at the Harvard Divinity School. Swamiji was appointed as minister and spiritual leader of the Vedanta Society of New York in January of 2017 and is the current resident Swami for this society. Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
We are honored to have you here today. Many of us in the Akshayam team have interacted with you in the past through the Anubhava conferences and have thoroughly enjoyed your discourses. So once again, on behalf of our team, I would like to welcome you and thank you for meeting with us.
Thank you for having me.
Today's topic will be Introduction to Vedanta. We will start off with a few questions and end the session with some questions from our Facebook viewers. Swamiji, could I humbly request you to start the session off with a prayer?
Yes. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace.
Thank you, Swamiji. Given this is an introductory session to Vedanta, the obvious first question that comes to our minds is, what is Vedanta?
Well, Vedanta is the philosophy or the essence of all the different sects of Hinduism. Why I choose to lead with that is, we all know that Swami Vivekananda was the first Hindu teacher who came to the United States, to the West, in fact, and taught Hinduism here. We know that he came for the 1893 World Parliament of Religions at Chicago. But in 1896, he was invited to Harvard University. Professor William James was there. And the subject for his talk was, what is Vedanta? Which is exactly what you've asked. And I was just looking through his lecture, which was later on published by the Harvard University. And he starts with this, that all the various sects of Hinduism, their philosophy is Vedanta. The essential philosophy of Hinduism is Vedanta. In fact, when you inquire into Hinduism, when you want to understand Hinduism, what you are inquiring into is Vedanta. Let me qualify that. When you look at the banner with which you led, it says Vedanta is one of the 6 schools of Hindu philosophy. And that is true. So the question might be, why didn't you say that Vedanta is one of the 6 schools of Hindu philosophy? I did not, because though it is true in a strict academic sense, it is also misleading to say that. Why? When you say the 6 schools of Hindu philosophy, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, and Vedanta, one gets the impression that there must be Hindus who are Nyayikas, who are Sankhyans, or Hindus who are, Vaisheshikas. The fact is, on the ground, if you look at Hinduism today, and it has been so for a very long time, the other schools of philosophy are more academic in nature. So a scholar would study them. If you're interested in Hindu philosophy, you would study them. And they have all gone to strengthen and enrich Vedanta. But practically on the ground, if you look at Hindus today and also for last several hundred years, you will find that they follow some variety, some flavor, variant of Vedanta, some school of Vedanta. Now, it is not um, obvious on the face of it. On the face of it, if you go to the Hindu temple, for example, you will see different images, different rituals. If you meet Hindus, you will clearly see that there are different varieties of Hindus and their practices, the deities they worship, the mantras they recite, the festivals they observe are somewhat different from each other. But in each of these cases, if you investigate, behind each sect, behind each branch of Hinduism, lies a school of Vedanta. For example, um, I'm from the Ramakrishna mission, and we are Advaita Vedantins. We follow the Advaita Vedanta school of Vedanta. For example, if you go in New York, the Hare Krishna movement is very well known, the ISKCON. If you investigate, you will see that's another branch of Vedanta called Achintya Bheda Bheda. If you look at, there are Sri Vaishnavas among the Indian community. If you look closely, that's another school of Vedanta, which is the Vishishtadvaita Vedanta of Ramanujacharya. Or if you go to the magnificent the temples, the Swami Narayan temples, which are there in different parts of the United States. If you inquire closely, what is the philosophy behind it? You will find it's another branch of Vedanta, which is very closely allied to the Vishishtadvaita of Ramanujacharya. And by the way, it's an evolving system. And the Swaminarayan sect has its own new approach to Vedanta, which is now they are codifying and writing books about it. So my point is, when you come across Hindus and you come across Hinduism, behind that bewildering variety, the core philosophy is Vedanta. If you look more closely and you inquire, what is the textual basis of Vedanta? So the definition of Vedanta, which we all we memorized when we started studying Vedanta in a traditional way. So the definition of Vedanta is Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam. Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam means, what is Vedanta? Vedanta is the spiritual knowledge revealed by the Upanishads, or the texts called the Upanishads are in fact called Vedanta. The Upanishads themselves taken together are called Vedanta. The very word Vedanta, literally it means end of Vedas, but a more precise meaning would be the anta there. Anta literally means end, but end in the sense of the culmination. Siddhanta. Siddhanta means the final conclusions of the Vedic teachings. The Vedas, as we know, are the fundamental texts, the root texts of Hinduism. And though, people have asked me, but we don't study the Vedas except a few scholars. Some chant them and very few understand them. And there are very few who have read all of the Vedas, even fewer who really understand what's going on there. That is true. But the essence of the Vedantic teaching, the essence of the Vedas is in Vedanta, and that is in the Upanishads. And those Upanishads, even those are studied mostly by scholars and philosophers, but the teachings are summarized and given in a practical form in a text with which we are all familiar with, Hindus and non-Hindus. That is the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is the second pillar of Vedanta. First pillar is Upanishads, which is central. The other pillar is the Bhagavad Gita, with which we are all familiar. And then there is another one, the Brahma Sutras. The Brahma Sutras are in aphoristic form. They codify the philosophy of Vedanta. So these three taken together, Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra, is called Prasthanatraya. Prasthanatraya means the triple foundation of Vedanta. So if anybody asks, what texts are foundational to Vedanta? What is canonical to Vedanta? So it's the Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita. Within Vedanta itself, there is a lot of variation. Just as Hinduism is enormously diverse, Vedanta also is diverse. So at the root of the diversity of Vedanta lies this text called the Brahma Sutras. So they are in very cryptic sutra form. In order to understand them, you need an explanation. And these explanations have been provided by the great acharyas, masters, philosophers, saints, who lived about 1,000 years ago. 1400 years ago, Adi Shankar Acharya. 1,000 years ago, Sri Ramanujacharya. Then Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya. Then you have Vallabhacharya. What did they do? They wrote explanations of the Brahma Sutras according to the different traditions already existing in Vedanta. So Shankaracharya wrote his explanation of the Brahma Sutra in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, which becomes the foundation for the Advaita Vedanta system, the system of Advaita Vedanta. Ramanujacharya gave a different explanation of the same Brahma Sutras in his Bhashya called the Sri Bhashya, which becomes the philosophical basis for the Sri Vaishnava, the Vishishtadvaita system. Similarly, Vallabhacharya, in his Bhashya, he sets the philosophical foundation for what is now known as the Shuddhadvaita. People who are from Maharashtra, Gujarat, they will be familiar with this as the Pushti Marga. So they are worshippers of Krishna. Then there is Nimbarkacharya, whose explanation of the Gita, of the Brahma Sutras, is the foundation of the system known as Dvaita Vedanta. Madhvacharya's Purna Pragya Bhashya is the philosophical foundation for the system known as Madhva Vedanta or Dvaita Vedanta. And the ISKCON, which I mentioned, they are a part of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, and their philosophical tradition is another school of Vedanta, the Achintya Veda Ved, which also has its own explanation of the Brahma Sutras. So my point here is the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutras are the foundational texts of Vedanta, but from the explanations of the Brahma Sutras, multiple traditions are there. So there's a whole range of philosophical traditions within Vedanta itself. I will particularly concentrate on Advaita Vedanta, though I'll talk about the other traditions also, because Advaita Vedanta is the tradition I'm most familiar with. Our order belongs to the Dashanami Sampradaya of Shankaracharya, the 10 orders of monks. Okay. What does it teach? Shankaracharya put it in a very beautiful way. He said, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Napara is the essence of Advaita Vedanta. That Brahman alone is real. There's an ultimate reality called Brahman, which is existence, consciousness, bliss. And this world is an appearance of that reality. That reality alone appears as this world. Jagat Mithya means that not that there's nothing. It is this world that we take, it's not an independent reality. It depends on a more fundamental reality, which is Brahman. What are we? Are we real or false? You are real. You are reality itself. You are Brahman. You think of yourself as this limited being of flesh and blood, but you are actually immortal spirit. I like that saying. It goes. We think we are human beings in search of spiritual experience, but the truth is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So this spiritual being is this Atman or Brahman according to Advaita Vedanta. The great Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi, that thou art, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, Prajnanam Brahma, Brahman is consciousness, the very consciousness that we feel right now. And I am Atma Brahma, this very self is Brahman. This is the essence of Advaita Vedanta. As time goes by, when we discuss this, I will bring in the teachings of the other schools of Vedanta also. But the central idea in all of this is the human being is actually divine. We share in the divinity of God. We are not just limited creatures of flesh and blood. We are immortal, and to realize that is the purpose of Vedanta. Swami Vivekananda put it very concisely. Each soul is potentially divine, and the goal of human life is to manifest this divinity already within us. So this is a very beautiful way of putting Vedanta. How do you do that? Broadly, there are 4 paths. In Advaita Vedanta, the central thing is jnana, the path of knowledge. One must realize it as the knowledge that I am Brahman. But there is also the path of bhakti. So in other schools of Vedanta, it is bhakti, devotion, which is primary. There are elements of yoga, meditation, and there is of course karma, action, which is ritualistic action in the temples, all kinds of puja, havan, all of that, but also all the action that we do in life, our whatever activity that we are doing. In the Bhagavad Gita, it was not preached in a temple or an ashram. It was preached in the battlefield of life, and it dealt with the duty which was facing Arjuna. So how do we spiritualize our day-to-day life? That is what Vedanta teaches us. Um, Let me put it in a more maybe contemporary way. I was just thinking, suppose you leave all this aside and you talk to people here in Manhattan in the 21st century. What does Vedanta offer them? Vedanta gives us the way to live the best possible life, the most meaningful possible life. It gives us the answers to the most fundamental questions of life. What is the meaning of life? Who am I? Does God exist? What is the purpose of life? How can I find true, lasting, deep satisfaction and peace? How can my life be meaningful for others? All of these, I have not found any answer higher than, deeper than what Vedanta gives us. Okay, there you have it in a nutshell, Vedanta.
Thank you, Swamiji. That was a beautiful explanation. Our second question is, could you please advise of some practical tips on how to present the crux of Vedanta to the current youth?
Well, I've always found when I talk to people, young people, older people too, is we are interested in knowing what we can practice now, and we are interested in knowing something that is of use to us now, which benefits us now. So when you transmit Vedanta to the next generation, to, for example, American Hindus, these two things have to be kept in mind. What is practical for us right now? And what good does it do that? What good does it do to us right now? Meditation is something that is very popular. Um, So Vedanta has its own traditions of meditation. Each school of Vedanta has a different role given to meditation. You see, what Vedanta has done is, from the other orthodox schools of philosophy, it has inherited the best of them. So from Nyaya, I've taken the logical analysis. But from yoga, for example, Patanjali's yoga, the entire system of meditation is taken and internalized within Vedanta. So one thing that um, we should learn from Vedanta is how to calm and concentrate our minds. That's one. Meditation, make it a regular practice for our lives. Another thing is the devotion, our affections. Here is a hint, like our affections, love is scattered in the world. You scatter your love in the world, it brings you unhappiness. You focus that love to God in whatever form your tradition or whatever form appeals to you. All of them are manifestations of the same Brahman. So we focus there and love all beings through that. So I suppose, for example, somebody loves Krishna. So all my love is for Krishna. My purpose of life is to realize Krishna, to find Krishna within myself, in everybody, and to attain to oneness with Krishna. Let's put it that way. And then you love all beings, human beings and animals and all, by finding the same Lord, the same divinity in all of them. So love scattered among objects and people and activities is bound to bring you suffering. But that love, when you focus it in God and love all beings through that, that gives you happiness, immediate happiness. Another insight from Vedanta would be karma. All our activities have to be spiritualized. When you go to the mandir and do puja ritual, we have this feeling we are doing something holy, sacred. Now, the same feeling, the same attitude has to be carried back outside the temple also. As we do it in the temple, with the same sense of sacredness, holiness, the same sense of the presence of God. In the office, when you're driving to work, when you are with your clients and patients and students, when you are with your members of your family and community, I am in the presence of God. So transformation of our karma into spirituality. Sister Nivedita, who followed Swami Vivekananda back to India and served Indian womanhood for the rest of her life, she says, henceforth, no difference between the sacred and the secular. Whatever we do, our so-called secular life has to be spiritualized. So karma has to be spiritualized. And another insight is self-knowledge, that I am not this body, that I am not the mind. It is actually not very difficult to see that. Whatever, here's a hint, whatever is an object is not you. So the world is an object. Clearly, this computer is an object. It's not me, I know that. But this body is also an object because I can see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it. The body, my own body, is an object. If it's an object, I am the subject. I can't be the body. But if you go deeper, the mind, thoughts, feelings, emotions, ideas, memories, desires, these are also objects. They're subtle objects, but they come into our awareness and we are aware of them and they disappear again. So they are fleeting, subtle, transient objects, but they are objects. I am not the mind. You are not your mind. In this way, and even subtler, even the sense of ego, I am not even that. Once you begin to do this, what is the use of this? It gives you a tremendous sense of freedom, a sense of lightness. That this equipment, body mind, which we had thought we are like the crazy driver who thinks I am the car. You realize you are not the car. The car is something that helps you. It is an instrument that you use. You are free of the car. Even when you're driving the car, you are not the car. You are free of it. You're free to use it. You're free to not use it. It's the same way in the body also. We are not the body. We are not stuck with the body. We are not born with the birth of the body. We do not age with the aging of the body. We are not diseased with the disease of the body. And we do not die with the death of the body. The more you think about it, this idea that I'm not the body, not the mind, is a source of tremendous freedom, of strength also. Summarizing, so what are the practical ways we can catch hold of Vedanta? It is this concentration is always better than distraction. Focusing of the mind through meditation. Devotion, love is to be focused on God. Work is to be spiritualized. And self-knowledge, that I am not body and mind. These are very profound insights that we get from Vedanta.
Thank you. How do we analyze Vedantic truth without knowledge of Vedas or even Sanskritam? I think you touched upon this in your introduction to Vedanta, but if you could elaborate on it a little more, that would be great.
Well, one thing is, nowadays it is the wisdom is available. At one time it was restricted. It was limited to a few scholars and a few monks, and they made it very difficult. You had to be really qualified to get this teaching. So you read in the scriptures how you approach a master who lives in a forest or a mountain maybe, and then you put through so many tests and finally you're accepted and given this very teaching. Now this teaching is available everywhere. Swami Vivekananda said the Vedanta which was limited, which was in the hands of a few monks and scholars in the forests and mountains, that Vedanta will scatter in the cities of the world. And that's what has happened over the last 150 years. You might ask, so why was it limited? Was it bad? No, there was a purpose to that. Only the most fit, spiritually fit, qualified would be given this teaching. And the result is that when you're given this teaching, such a person would become enlightened in very short order, very quickly. It would work. If we are not fit and we get the teaching, it still benefits us. Maybe we don't become enlightened, we don't become Jivan Muktas or Brahmagyanis immediately or very soon. But to the extent that we understand it, to that extent we practice it, we are benefited. Everybody is benefited. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Sanskrit again, but Sri Krishna says even the practice of a little bit of Vedanta saves you from great fear, from great anxiety. So yes, it is available now. Books are there nowadays, of course. Right now, for example, we are giving talks. A lot of talks are available on YouTube and other media. But books, at one time, it was in Sanskrit. The essence was in Sanskrit, and it was difficult unless you were a trained scholar. Later on, it became translated into vernacular languages. For example, a great book is Vichar Sagar, which was Sadhu Nischal Dasji, not so long ago. He translated all his Vedantic learning. He was a great Vedantic scholar and a teacher. He translated all of it and he put it into a new composition in Hindi, um, Vichar Sagar. Some of the most sophisticated Vedanta which you get in the Sanskrit text, you get it in the Vichar Sagar also. But here is something interesting. Little diversion here. The importance of Sanskrit. You see, when Nischal Dasji wrote it all in Hindi, it became accessible to lots of people who didn't know Sanskrit, which was his purpose. But the funniest thing is, the strangest thing is, today, uh, after a century, a couple of centuries after Nischal Dasji, if you try to read that, even people who know Hindi, today's Hindi, they don't understand it. Because that Hindi in which Nischal Dasji wrote, to make it accessible to people, that Hindi has evolved beyond recognition. Only a scholar of Hindi will be able to understand that old Hindi. Very few people know that. And yet, Sanskrit, in which Shankara wrote, in which the Upanishads are written, thousands and thousands of years old, that is still the same and well understood because it's sort of, the parameters are drawn by Panini's grammar. So it's sort of steady. So it carries the wisdom in a steady form across centuries and millennia. Just a little shout out to Sanskrit, to a little advertisement for Sanskrit. But if you don't want to, it is in English. It's in different Indian languages and other non-Indian languages. Beautiful books, very authentic books are available now. Yes.
Okay. How do we substantiate the true origin or root of a Vedantic message? For example, detachment is the path to happy life.
Yes.
Is the origin here based on science, or is it a message being conveyed?
It's a message being conveyed. The best way is to get a grounding in the essential texts. One text one can always start with, among the original texts, the one text one can always start with is the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Bhagavad Gita has many, many interpretations. Many people have translated it, and many interpretations have been given since ancient times. In fact, there was a new translation out in English last year. It was reviewed in the New York Times. An Indian gentleman living in America translated it, and the new translation is called God Song. So it's a very literal translation of Bhagavad Gita, God Song. But the New York Times reviewer says that apparently to read the Gita is to be seized by an inexorable desire to translate it. So anybody who's reading the Gita comes up with their own translation and many, many different commentaries. So it's always better to read the original with a simple translation first. And if you read commentaries, read more than one so that you get different ideas. And then there are other texts which are there, which convey the essential teachings of Vedanta. This action with detachment, to live with detachment, one must, should not take it in isolation. Why detachment? Why should I not be attached? See, the whole goal of Vedanta one must keep in the background. What is my purpose in life? If there is an ultimate reality called Brahman, if I am that Brahman, if knowing that solves my problems, then that should be my ultimate goal. As Swami Vivekananda said, the goal of human life is to manifest the divinity already within us. Once this ultimate goal is decided, in Vedanta, this is called moksha. In all, the point of entirety of Hinduism is ultimately to attain that moksha. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, moral life, and the pursuit of human ends like pleasure and success, kama and artha. But ultimately, the ultimate goal is moksha. So, My point is, all of us, Vedanta tells us, think about it and make up your mind that my goal, whether I'm a monk or a householder, a student or an administrator, whatever I am, old or young, my goal in this life and life after life will be, until I attain it, my goal is God realization, moksha, Brahma Jnana, whatever you call it, in whichever branch of Vedanta, whichever sect we belong to. Once we make up this, make up our minds that spirituality is the goal of my life, I can still continue to be what I am. Remember, Arjuna and Krishna, neither were monks, they were householders. But the whole purpose of Gita is called Moksha Shastra. The whole purpose of Gita is how to attain moksha. For people who were very much in worldly life, as it is for people who are in monastic life also. Once you make up your mind, then all the other teachings of Vedanta fall into place. Why meditate? So that I can focus my mind on God realization. Why study Upanishads? So that I will realize what I am. Why do bhakti? So that my mind will be taken away from the ephemeral things of the samsara and focused on God. You see, all the teachings will fall into place. Why be detached? So that my karma, now I can dedicate it to God realization, not for individual limited worldly goals. Yes. One more thing, let me just say, this
Sure.
idea of moksha. We had a Swami in California, in San Francisco in the 1940s, 50s, Swami Ashokananda, a very great Swami. If you get his books, do read them. Very inspiring. You know, especially today's people would love to read it. He's talking about the same Vedantic truths, but in such an original way. If you listen to him speaking, it's as if he's coming up with it himself. It's the same truth, but in his own language. It's coming from his own realization. Anyway, one of the things he said was that the more I see this society, at that time, remember, height of the Cold War, 1950s and all. So the two great systems, capitalism, communism, these things. More I see this society, more I realize that an ultimate spiritual goal is necessary. It is lacking. After we make a great society, what then? So there is an ultimate spiritual goal, even if someone does not pursue it. We should know, everybody should know, from the child to the oldest person, we should know that such a thing is possible. God exists, Brahman exists, our spiritual nature exists. God realization, enlightenment is possible. It is always there present for us. Just keeping this in the background and one day taking it up earnestly. This is a wonderful philosophy of life.
Thank you, Swamiji. We have one more question noted down before we open the session to questions from our Facebook viewers. Could you please share the top, say, 5 Vedantic messages that are simple and practical, or alternatively, an authentic source that we can refer to? You just mentioned that there are multiple sources where we can, have access to these messages.
Yes.
Messages that are preferably messages that preferably do not have any attachments like caste, creed, sex, religion, etc.
Right. Yeah. In general, if you look at the central teachings of Vedanta, let's put it this way. If you want peace of mind, and who does not want peace of mind, follow a dharmic life. That which I know to be moral, ethical, let me do that. That which I know to be immoral, unethical, let me avoid that in my life. And it could be a struggle, but let me make it a clear goal that my goal is to lead a dharmic life. Goal is to be a millionaire, goal is to be a PhD, goal is to get the Nobel Prize. These goals are strictly limited and they ultimately lead to dissatisfaction. What goal, what kind of life will lead to satisfaction? All those things could be there. You could still be a millionaire or a PhD and get a Nobel Prize, but that should not be the central plank of our life. The central plank, the basis of our life, dharmic life. That's one insight. Ethical, not unethical. And that gives you peace of mind. If you want happiness, so yes, we all want happiness. Immediately, if you want happiness, right now, and lasting happiness, and happiness unmixed with sorrow, is that possible? Yes, it is. And right now, and easy. What is that? We'll all whip out our notebooks. Tell me. Fall in love with God. Fall in love with God. Yeah, how can I fall in love with somebody I don't know? Make a beginning. Make a beginning. Simulate it if you have to. We all know what love is like, even liking is like. Just start with a little bit of liking for God, for my Krishna or my Rama or my Devi, in whichever form, whichever tradition you belong to, whatever appeals to you, make a beginning there. The beauty of bhakti is, this is something that comes from the bhakti traditions of Vedanta. The beauty of bhakti is you don't have to start off with all qualifications, and you don't have to have this highest inexpressible love for God is called bhakti. That's all much later. Just make a beginning among all the things that we like, among the 100 things that we like in life. Add one more, 101, God. And you'll see how that expands and fills up your life. So if you want happiness, peace of mind, ethical life. Happiness in life, fall in love with God. If you want the lasting quietness, calmness, serenity of mind, meditation. Even moral thoughts, even thoughts of loving God, those also have to come to an end at least twice a day. No thought, because I am not the mind. Separate yourself from the mind at least twice a day in deep meditation. Swami, easier said than done. No, you can begin, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes in the morning and evening. Which meditation? Variety are available. I'm not going to recommend one particular meditation. Variety are available. You can do mantra japa, you can do visualization, you can do kundalini, so many types. Even Buddhistic meditations are available. Mindfulness is there, and so many things. But whatever it is, chitta vritti nirodha, cessation of the modifications of the mind, no matter how good the modifications, dharmic modification, bhakti modification of the mind, those also stop. Absolute stillness and peace. Relax into that at least twice a day. And finally, if you want the truth, then come to Jnana. What am I? What is this world? Is there an ultimate reality? That Brahman, that Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. So these are four practices which are the essences of the four yogas. The dharmic lifestyle and unselfishness on top of that, that comes from Karma Yoga. Love of God comes from Bhakti Yoga. The peaceful stillness of meditation comes from Raja Yoga. And Jnana Yoga tells us the truth, what we are. I think that's enough to go on with.
Yes, thank you so much. That was those were really beautiful messages that we could learn from. I think we can open up the discussion to take questions from the audience now.
So will you ask the question, or should I read it out?
Yeah, sure. I can read it out. Swamiji, how Vedanta helps now in the mid of the crisis of COVID.
For one who has no understanding of Vedanta.
Vedanta.
Yeah, it's like saying, how will medicine help for someone who does not take medicine? No, it won't help. But a little bit of understanding of Vedanta is make a beginning. Even if a person does not have understanding of Vedanta, make a beginning. The very fact that I am not the body, that saves you from a lot of anxiety regarding the body and disease of the body. The body may still get disease, but the anxiety is, I am diseased, I am sick, I am suffering. No, there's a very big difference between I am sick and the body is sick, or the body can get sick. So this little gap, that psychological gap that opens up between you and the body, that is a very important contribution of Vedanta. Vedanta also says this: the Atman is one, or Brahman is one, according to Advaita Vedanta. So I am the consciousness in all beings, not just in this body. So you have a sense of oneness with those who are suffering, those who are struggling. So this tendency, this desire to help others will also be there, to reach out to others. So, in Karma Yoga, they say that one of the best ways of getting your own peace of mind is to not be so concerned with one's own problems. Rather, see what one can do for others. It's one of the counterintuitive insights of Vedanta. We all try to be happy. We all try to be fulfilled, peaceful. And the way we do it is trying to make this thing happy, this body mind. So all our efforts is trying to gratify this body and mind, and it keeps on increasing tension and stress and unhappiness and dissatisfaction. And the counterintuitive thing is the way to make this happy is to make everybody else happy. So to work for, to even wish for, think about the welfare of others, automatically, the first thing it does is brings about your own welfare much more effectively than directly working for your own welfare. So that's how that insight. So two insights. One is I am not the body mind. That saves you from a lot of anxiety and tension regarding crises like this. Second is I am the one reality in all beings. So that immediately makes you feel one with people who are in trouble and suffering, and your desire is to help them and expressed in service. How to put into practice detachment of body and mind in modern living. Yes, think about it this way. Just as the example of the driver which I gave, when the driver is crazy if the driver thinks I am the car. No, that when the driver realizes that I am not the car, I use the car, I drive the car, it serves my purpose, I am free of the car. Even when I'm driving the car, I'm free of it. It's not that I'm trapped in the car. Exactly in the same way, we must regard our body mind. That this body mind has been, if you say, given to us by nature or by God, depending upon your philosophical orientation, by our own karma. In this life, we have got this kind of a setup. Now let me use it. The purpose of life is not to take care of the body. The body is there to serve the purpose of life. So this kind of this detachment. Understand it also. Dhyana helps us to understand this. This bookmark. I will never say I am this bookmark. It's an object. I am the subject. This bookmark is an object. Exactly like that. Look at the hand. This other hand, the parts of the body, is also object. We can see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it. It's an object to all our senses. Why do I say that? If I'm saying that this is not me, this bookmark is not me, then why do I say that this body is me? Somebody said, no, but if you hit the bookmark, you don't feel the pain. But if you hit the body, you feel the pain. If there is hunger in the body, you feel the discomfort. So I'm the body. But this hunger in the body and this pain in the body, when you hit the body, in a subtle way, notice it. This pain is also an object. If the body is an object, the sensations in the body are also an object because you are aware of it. What is the definition of object? What I am aware of. Now, if you hit the body or pierce the body, there's a sharp pain. And that pain is also an object. So it's not that you are the pain, you are the witness of the pain. What good does that do? That immediately opens up a psychological gap between you and the pain. And then you begin to see it is true. The body with all its sensations, good and bad, pleasant, unpleasant, painful, pleasurable. The mind with all its thoughts, uh, happy, sad, depressed, enthusiastic, all those thoughts. Intellect with all its understanding, not understanding, memory with all its remembering, forgetting. All of these are objects. And you begin to see automatically, ipso facto, you begin to see that I am not the body mind. And just like the driver in the car, it does not mean the body mind will disappear. It will still be there and it will now serve your purpose much better. Vignesh. Vignesh Kumar is asking, are Vedanta and present day psychological advice any similar? If so, how is your advice to the younger generation? Yes, it's interesting that psychology, until recently, until the end of the 20th century, maybe 70s, 80s, in general, psychology was not very similar to Vedanta or yoga or bhakti. It was quite different. It was more of curing sick people. So, it was therapy for people who had psychological psychological disturbances. Um, there is suffering in life, but if the suffering is much more than usual due to some kind of malady, psychological abnormalities or maladies, then psychology comes to your help, psychiatry comes to your help and treats you, so that you can become a normal suffering human being, still suffering human being, but normally suffering human being. But what happened at the end of the 20th century, 80s or 90s, 90s, 80s, 90s, here, right here in America, Professor Martin Seligman, he is now regarded as one of the leading lights of the positive psychology movement. So he thought, very much like Vedanta, that um, you know, why should psychology only be there for making sick people normal? How about making normal people's lives better? Our lives are okay, ordinary, just like everybody else. But how about making this better, a better life, more? The word came up, wellness. How can we have wellness? How can we achieve our potential? How can our lives be much better than as they are right now? So the study of happiness, they call it happiness studies. It became a big thing. It's now a big thing. Study of character, study of resilience, how we can suffer and come back, bounce back, study of creativity, all of these things, emotional intelligence, all of these things now became part of psychology. This whole thing is called positive psychology, and it's now well accepted in academic circles. This positive psychology is much closer to Vedanta. Vedanta is light years ahead of it, but positive psychology is much closer now. There's a lot that positive psychology can and is learning from Vedanta, especially in the areas of meditation, for example, yoga. So, yes, modern positive psychology is is compatible, directly compatible with Vedanta. There's a huge literature already available, very good literature on positive psychology, which a student of Vedanta can use to his or her advantage, combining with one's own Vedantic studies. Abhiram is asking, Vedanta being different schools of thought, what do you say to the younger generation when they ask that they all lead to the same supreme being? That's what I believe. Sri Ramakrishna taught that all the religions are like different paths leading to the same goal. Same goal being infinite, it can be described in different ways. People may ask, how do you say it's the same reality? Vishnu does not look like Shiva, or Vishnu and Shiva don't seem to have anything common with the Christian or the Islamic formless God. All of these, they are all human approximations of an infinite, which is well beyond our capacity to grasp. So that which is infinite, when you bring it under some kind of manageable limitation, so you have Saguna Sakara Brahman, the ultimate reality, which is with qualities, all knowing, all powerful, loving, just, and with form. So in the form of Kartikeya or Ganesha, or so they're all very highly symbolic. They have their own meanings. Or it could be without form, with all glorious qualities but formless. Saguna Nirakara. Or it could be without qualities and without form, Nirguna Nirakara of the Advaita Vedanta, beyond any kind of characterization at all. Except you can say it is infinite existence, consciousness, bliss, Satchidananda. So yes, all the different paths, they lead to, and they are expressions of an ultimate being or ultimate reality, which you can, the Shaivas call Shiva, and the Vaishnavas call Vishnu, and the Shaktas call Devi, the Divine Mother. Yeah, and you can extend it further. The Hindus have absolutely no problem with Christianity or Islam or Judaism. We even with say, for example, Buddhism, which does not talk about God at all. That's another way of being spiritual. Buddhism, Jainism. So the beauty of Hinduism and Vedanta is it's wonderful as a basis for interfaith harmony within Hinduism and outside Hinduism also. Yeah.
I guess this ties to also the fact that you just mentioned earlier that although there are different schools of thoughts with Vedanta, they're all based on the same Vedas, right?
Absolutely, that's an important point. Thank you for reminding me. In Vedanta, the different schools of thought are different interpretations of the same texts, the same Upanishads, same Bhagavad Gita, same Brahma Sutra. It's not helpful to ask which is correct, rather which appeals to you more. It could be which is your tradition. um, each of them, I'm an Advaita Vedantin, but I find wonderful insights in Ramanujacharya's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of a Vishishtadvaita tradition. When I teach Bhagavad Gita these days, I use a lot of insights from the Hindi commentary written by Ramsukh Dasji, who was more modern saint who passed away a few years ago only. But he belongs to the Vishishtadvaita tradition. Vishishtadvaita tradition. But such wonderful insights. Those insights are common to all humanity. Everybody can use those insights.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Some mantra that anybody, there are some mantras which are common mantras across the Advaita tradition. So, for example, the famous Shiva mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. Everybody, children, grown-ups, you can all practice it together. You can chant it by yourself, you can chant it in a group, or you can listen to a recording of it being chanted, Om Namah Shivaya. In the Vaishnava tradition, there is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the different general mantras which everybody can use, or simply the impersonal Om, just the Om, which contains the essence of Vedanta packed into it. A prolonged chanting of the Om. Panchadashi recommends Dirgha Pranava Ucharana. So a prolonged chanting of the Om is very calming and elevating for the mind and the body.
Looks like that was the final question we had time for today. Thank you so much, Swamiji, for sharing your knowledge with us and
Thank you for
clarifying all
having
of
me.
our doubts.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we learned a lot about Vedanta and hope to continue this discussion in future sessions.
Thank you so much.
To our audience on Facebook and YouTube, we want to thank you all for participating in this virtual edition of Learning Series. We hope to see you again next month with another informative session. For details of future sessions, please continue to watch the temple's website. Before we end the session, we would just like to make a couple of quick announcements. The temple is open daily from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. for darshan only. Also, please join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, right here on Facebook or YouTube for a cultural program, Vimochana, to celebrate life and togetherness. For details about this program, please visit the temple's website, which is nyganeshtemple.org. Thank you all, and thank you again, Swamiji, for taking the time from your busy schedule to be with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Stay safe. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.